The salvage moon never slept. From orbit, it was just a pitted rock wrapped in a haze of dust and metal, a dim lantern circling a swollen gas giant. Down on the surface, it was noise and arcs of cutting torches, the tang of ozone, engines coughing, cranes whining as they swung entire ship sections through low artificial gravity. Andrew Bonfield stood at the edge of Bay 12, watching an ancient cruiser's spine groan as it settled into the scrap cradle. Its hull plating peeled like armor, exposing ribs of carbon struts and vacuum-scored conduits. 100 workers swarmed it, orange suits scuttling over gray steel. He should have loved it here. It was ordered chaos, systems inside systems, exactly the kind of mess an intel analyst could untangle for fun. And yet every shriek of tearing metal sounded to him like a scream. Bonfield! He turned. Cade, his foreman, jerked a thumb toward the terminal row. You got new intake. Central wants registry scanned and flagged before shift end, and no freelancing on the side this time. Andrew snorted. You overcharge me for lunch once and I sell maybe one black box. Suddenly I'm a criminal mastermind. Cade jabbed a finger. You're a contractor. Criminal by default. Move it. Andrew walked, boots ringing on the catwalk, the red dust of the moon smeared across the worn plating. He passed stacks of stripped hull sections rising like cliffs, their exposed decks gaping open. In low gravity, they'd welded them into towers to save ground space. The air smelled of hot metal and recycled breath. Central data hub of the company used to dominate the moon, a gleaming prismatic cylinder, mirrored glass and smart steel running everything. Manifests, biometrics, security nets, the price of every bolt. Now it was half ruined, upper levels eaten in an explosion 3 years back. The skeleton remained, twisted beams and slabs suspended in scaffolds, patched enough to house terminals and sleepy guards. He'd come here right after the war. Ex-military intel analysts were about as employable as worn-out rifles, but the salvage corporations needed anyone who could read a system log and make sense of old fleet architecture. So he buried his uniform, grew out the stubble, put on the orange coverall, and learned to pretend he'd never heard the words operational theater or kill box. He slid into his cubicle at the edge of the hub, a steel partition, a battered hollow terminal, a chair that wobbled when he breathed. The screen flickered as it registered his presence, iris scan ghosting green. New arrival, vessel ID 77FL Delta. Class, patrol frigate, decommissioned. Prior owner, private security firm, Dorian Shield. Andrew's stomach tightened. Dorian Shield wasn't just any security firm. It had once been a deniable arm of the same intelligence apparatus he'd served. Funny, he muttered. What are you doing out here? He pried open the data package, hull schematics, crew manifest, purchase logs, standard corporate sanitization. That's what he was supposed to sign off, but old habits were hard to kill. He keyed in a few extra commands, fingers moving in patterns that never quite left his bones. Deep scan, residual subsystem map, ghost architecture. The terminal hesitated, then coughed up a hidden branch, flagged with restricted corporate tags. There you are. Bonfield, Cade's voice rasped over his shoulder. You working or composing poetry? Frigate coming in with encrypted junk, Andrew said. You know the drill. Takes time. Cade grunted. Just don't trip any alarms. Central's twitchy today. We got a security delegation dirtside. I'm always careful, Andrew said. He said it automatically. It stopped being true the moment he opened that hidden node. The screen flashed a warning. Access violation. Then another. Override accepted. Authority. Exec LVL Omega. He blinked. Someone important had left the door open. Inside the node was a compressed packet labeled INTELCORE-FIELDOPS. Acquired, classified, clearance, prohibited. It made his teeth ache just thinking about the kinds of ghosts living in that memory. He closed it. That was reflex too. He wasn't intel anymore. He was just a man in a noisy salvage hub who slept in a cube apartment that smelled like rust and instant noodles. He was done chasing secrets that got people killed. His terminal chimed softly. Incoming shuttle. Bay 3. Origin. Low orbital station. CIV transfer. Manifest. 11 crew/23 passengers. Nothing unusual. People came through all the time looking for work, trouble, or both. He might have ignored it if the hub lights hadn't dimmed an instant later, cycling from a cool white to the pulsing amber of alert. All personnel, a voice barked over the PA, clipped and metallic. Security sweep in progress. Report any suspicious individuals to nearest checkpoint. Transport traffic is restricted. Repeat. Cade swore. Told you, delegation. That's going to screw the whole shift. Dorian Shield? Andrew asked. Cade gave him a sideways look. You get paid enough to ask that kind of question? Curious by nature, Andrew said, but his pulse had jumped. On the far wall, the slat windows that overlooked Bay 3 shuttered open. Heat and sound washed in. The roar of shuttle engines cycling down, the distant shout of voices. And then he saw her. She came down the shuttle ramp with the other passengers, hood up, shoulders squared. The crowd jostled and broke around her like she didn't exist. No luggage. Hands free. Eyes scanning without moving her head. Run profile, his mind supplied. Threat aware, minimal tell. Her gaze flicked up, met his through the glass. For a second, the salvage moon, the hub, the noise, everything vanished. There was only that look. Dark eyes under the shadow of the hood, the set of her jaw. Not fear, calculation. Then someone behind her grabbed her arm. Two men, black security armor, visors up enough for him to see their bored, professional expressions. Private corp design, but the posture was government. They started pulling her toward a side checkpoint. She twisted, grabbed one man's wrist, and moved. To most of the workers below, it looked like chaos. To Andrew, it was a pattern he knew by heart. A strike to the nerve cluster above the elbow. A pivot that used the first man's weight to slam him into the second. She ducked under the swinging rifle, heel hooked behind a knee, drove someone down as if folding a chair. Then the overhead turrets whined, rotating, targeting. She ran. Every siren on the deck screamed. Security personnel on the catwalk shouted, waving rifles, scrambling into position. She ran straight for Bay 12, straight toward him. The access door slammed open. She burst through, breathing hard, hood half torn, hair sticking to sweat on her temple. Up close, she was a mess of contradictions. The tremor in her fingers didn't match the steady line of her gaze. Her clothes were civilian faded, but cut to conceal gear she'd already ditched. For the briefest moment, they stared at each other in the shadow of the ruined central hub. Andrew Bonfield? She asked. His name in her mouth sounded like a classified file opening. Depends who's asking. Someone who needs you to decide very quickly if you're still who you used to be. Footsteps thundered in the corridor behind her. She took 2 steps toward him, close enough that he smelled the copper tang of blood, the acrid residue of shuttle engine exhaust clinging to her clothes. My name is Anna, she said. They're coming for me. If they take me, they get everything I stole from them. If they don't, they burn this whole place to find it. You have 10 seconds. 10 seconds for what? His mouth was dry. To choose, she said. Hide me or turn me in. He could see their shadows now, the security team pounding toward the door. The old part of his brain, the one that had survived war and interrogation rooms and long nights with too many screens, measured angles, distances, probabilities. He should walk away. He should raise his hands and say, she went that way. I'm nobody. Instead, he reached out, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her toward the maintenance ladder on the side wall. Up, he said. Move. They climbed into the skeleton of the hub. The old central data hub had died badly. When it blew, it tore out its heart and left its bones hanging, ribs of shattered glass and twisted beams, shards of hollow panels still welded to support struts, cables like veins dangling in the dusty air. They scrambled over rust-flaked metal, boots clanging. Beneath them, security officers poured into the lower level, scanning with drones and opaque visors. Thermals? One snarled. Too hot in here. Scrap everywhere. Motion sensors? Shorting from interference. Andrew and Anna ducked behind a slanted slab of armor glass, backs pressed together. Distantly, cutting torches still screamed from other bays. The salvage moon didn't care what happened in its heart. Why me? He whispered. Anna's breath brushed his neck. Because you're the only former analyst on payroll with Omega clearance markers buried in his personnel ID. And because you didn't report the hidden node on that frigate. He froze. You were watching my terminal. I was watching all of them, she said, until they noticed. You poking that core probably saved my life. It distracted their eyes for 3 extra seconds. Your intel, he said slowly. She tilted her head, lips close to his ear. Congratulations, you cracked the big mystery. Above them, a drone hummed, rotor wash stirring dust. Andrew held perfectly still, willing his heartbeat to quiet. His shoulder pressed against hers. Every muscle in her body was coiled, ready. The drone passed. What did you steal? He asked. Proof, she said, that Dorian Shield isn't just cleaning up after their government pals. They're running black cells, false flag ops, asset elimination, building a private archive of everyone they touch, including you. I burned my bridge with them years ago, he muttered. They didn't burn you, Anna said. That's different. Somewhere below, an officer shouted, Sweep the upper levels! She couldn't have gone far. Anna's hand found his in the shadow, fingers gripping hard. I need access to that intel core on the frigate. I can exfil what I stole into it, fracture it, seed it. Once it's in, Dorian Shield's own retrieval protocols will spread the infection through their black archive, using their ghost architecture against them, Andrew said. The plan was insane. It was also elegant. They won't be able to hide what they've done, she said. Not from each other, not from the government. They'll spend years trying to put the pieces back in the dark. In the meantime, a lot of people get to keep breathing. And if I say no? He asked. You can walk away, she said quietly. Something in her voice shifted, softer. Go back to cataloging scrap and drinking synth until your heart gives up. No judgment. Survival's not a crime. Their eyes met in the reflection of a shattered hollow panel. For a heartbeat, he saw himself the way she must have. A tired man with scars under his stubble, eyes that were still taking in everything, filing, weighing. A man who'd spent 3 years pretending to be smaller than he was. He thought of the war, of the reports he'd written that became missions that became casualty numbers, of the last time he'd looked at classified footage and realized he no longer knew what side he was on. He thought of the days on this moon that blurred together, the nights spent staring at the ceiling thinking, maybe this is all I deserve. Fine, he said. We go for your core, but we don't do it stupid. Stupid was trying to do it alone, she said. A small smile flickered. Glad I found you. He didn't understand why those words landed in his chest like a warm shock, but they did. Come on, he said. I know a way out of here they won't have on their schematics. The lower salvage decks were a maze, by design. The company added tunnels and shortcuts every time they built a new bay, rarely updating official maps. Andrew had spent 3 years learning them, walking them whenever he couldn't sleep. He led Anna through narrow maintenance corridors choked with cable bundles, across rusted catwalks over acid treatment pits, past mountains of half-disassembled drones. Signs in 6 languages warned about hazardous materials and unauthorized access. No one enforced them. They moved quickly, staying in the shadows when security patrols passed overhead. Anna walked like someone trained to run and fight in tight spaces. She never brushed a dangling cable or kicked a loose bolt. You sure you're not military? Andrew asked quietly as they ducked under a swinging crane arm. Did some contract work, she said. Shared channels, shared lies. You know how it is. He did. In Dock 7, they paused. Above them, looming in the void of the open bay, the Dorian Shield frigate floated in the salvage cradle. A dark knife of a ship, hull scabbed with micrometeorite scars and patched armor. Its registry lights were dead. Only the faint glow of emergency strips traced its silhouette. You got clearance to board? Anna asked. Officially? No. Unofficially, he shrugged. I'm data support for incoming vessels. No one watches where I walk as long as I log my hours. Still arrogant, she murmured. They built this place like a fortress, but left the brainstem hanging loose. That's why people like us exist, he said. They crossed the bay floor, just 2 more workers in orange coveralls hustling to meet a deadline. Turret cameras tracked them without suspicion. A loader mech trundled by, carrying a crate of stripped-down fusion coils. At the frigate's access ramp, a single bored tech sat on a crate, tapping through entertainment feeds on his wrist console. His eyes flicked up as they approached. Core work detail, Andrew said, holding up his ID badge. The tech scanned it, barely looking. Seriously? At this hour? Central wants priority on Dorian assets, Andrew said. New delegation. Those guys? The tech grimaced sympathetically. Fine, don't touch anything that looks like it could explode, or anything marked legal liability. That's your whole inventory, Andrew muttered as they walked up the ramp. Inside, the frigate was a narrow labyrinth. Obsolete luxury had been bolted over with hard edges. Leather seats and dark wood trim now interleaved with combat consoles, armored bulkheads, weapon racks. The air smelled of stale air scrubbers and insulation. The core? Anna asked. Forward data vault, Andrew said. Topside, spine deck, locked in redundant security because they thought like people, not like systems. They put everything important in one box and called it safe. He led her through corridors lit by emergency strips, the deck vibrating faintly under their feet. Occasionally, faint sounds of the salvage crew outside thudded through the hull, clangs of impact, the whine of welders. They reached the data vault, a circular chamber with a central pillar of armored plating. The core inside it hummed, low and steady. Panels on the pillar's surface blinked with secure link lights, quietly alive despite the ship's retirement. Andrew stepped up to the console. It scanned his badge, then his eyes. Access denied. Clearance level insufficient. He sighed. Figures. Anna stepped beside him. Move over. She reached under her collar, pulling out a paper-thin, crystalline sliver on a chain. It gleamed faintly as she slotted it into a hidden port under the console's edge. The system paused. Then the light shifted from red to soft white. Welcome, operative, a Serrano. Priority channel, Omega 9. Andrew glanced at her sharply. You weren't just contract. I was their inside pair of eyes on black projects, she said, until I saw the wrong file. The one you stole, he said, among others. She slid her hands over the interface. I'm going to piggyback my payload into their archive ghost. When they sync, it'll push out, like a virus made of truth. You know they'll try to erase it, he said. They'll try, she said. Her eyes narrowed, but they've been hoarding everything for years. Intercepts, deep cover logs, asset maps. They can't kill what they don't fully understand without risking taking a sword to their own spinal cord. The console projected a web of data, nodes and strands like a luminous galaxy, pulsing as it synced with distant servers. Anna's fingers danced, threading her own packet, a dark, coiled shard, into the structure. Andrew watched, mesmerized. It was like watching someone lace a bomb into a tapestry. This is who you are, isn't it? He said quietly. She glanced at him. Dangerous question, she said. Who are you? Just a mechanic with bad habits, he said. Liar, she replied, not unkindly. The vault lights flickered. On the main display, a new icon flared. Active intrusion detected. Source, unauthorized. Anna swore under her breath. They're pinging the connection. That's fast. Delegation must have plugged in topside, Andrew said. Direct line. You said we had time. I said we had more than 10 seconds. I didn't say we had hours. The console bleated a warning. Connection trace initiated. Lockdown in 0030. Anna's jaw tightened. I can either finish the upload or cut the link. If I cut, we walk, but the payload dies. If I finish, they'll know exactly where you are, he said. She looked at him. No bravado now, just math. Walk away, Andrew. I can log you out, give you plausible deniability. And leave you here? He asked. Better one asset burned than two, she said. The old part of him stirred again, that training drilled into him to minimize loss, think in numbers and risk tables, exfil your own skin, and live to fight another day. But 3 years in scrap had taught him something else. What it felt like to be discarded, to be treated like broken hardware, weighed only as risk. I'm so tired of being their math, he said softly. Anna blinked. The console timer ticked down. 0018. What are you doing? She asked as he moved past her. Plan C, he said. There is no plan C. There is now. He popped the manual override panel on the core's side. It hissed open, revealing a dense forest of crystalline circuits and fiber-thin conduits. Buried among them was a mechanical switch with a handwritten label. Safety, interlock, do not touch. Who writes in pen on a black box? He muttered, fingers braced. Engineers who don't trust software, Anna said. Wait, are you... He yanked the switch. The hum of the core dropped to a low growl. The console's lights flickered, then steadied, but the warning changed. Connection unstable. Force sync, override engaged. Anna's eyes widened. You just forced the sync into a hard multiplex channel. You know what that means? Faster, he said. Also louder, she said. They'll see a spike like a beacon. On the display, her payload burrowed through the data web like a streak of dark lightning. The timer spun. Lockdown in 0012. 009. Can you ride it? He asked. She grinned, sudden and bright despite the tension. Watch me. Her fingers blurred over the controls. Data streamed, the payload fracturing into a dozen, then 100 splinters, embedding itself in mirror caches, backup archives, redundant ghost nodes. The timer hit 00. Lockdown failed. Override circuits compromised. Trace confirmed. Source: Salvage Moon, Frigate 77 Delta. Congratulations, Anna said breathlessly. We just pissed in their entire swimming pool. Klaxons wailed, red lights strobed, bulkhead doors began to cycle closed. They know exactly where we are, she said. We're done here anyway, Andrews said. Time to go. He grabbed her hand. She didn't pull away. They didn't make it off the frigate before security arrived. The first squad cut them off at the midship junction. 6 armored figures, rifles up. Their leader stepped forward, helmet retracting to reveal a face Andrew knew far too well. Bonfield, said Commander Havel. Of course. The years had added lines around Havel's eyes, but hadn't softened them. He'd been Andrew's controlling officer in the war, a man who gave orders like a surgeon making cuts. Commander, Andrew said. He felt Anna tense at his side. This isn't your arena, Havel said calmly. Step away from the asset and I can still write this off as you being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Anna's voice was flat. I'm not an asset, I'm a witness. Witnesses are just unsecured variables, Havel said pleasantly. And variables are undesirable. Anna squeezed Andrew's hand once, then let go. She stepped forward. Let him walk, Havel. He's out. He's been out. You dragged him back in, Havel said. You always did have a talent for contamination, Anna. She flinched at the way he said her name. That told Andrew more about their history than a whole file could have. You installed her, Andrew realized, didn't you? On the inside. Havel's gaze flicked to him. She was a useful tool until she mistook access for moral authority. You're harvesting your own blackmail archive, Andrew said. That's what the core is. Insurance. Havel smiled thinly. And here I thought you'd gone soft. Yes, we keep records. It's how we survive in a messy world. You don't get to call it survival when you're holding the knife and the camera, Anna snapped. Havel sighed. This righteous phase of yours was tedious enough privately. Broadcasting it would be embarrassing. Fortunately, we can still clean this up. He lifted his hand. Rifles tracked up, targeting Anna's center mass. Andrew should have stayed quiet. That would have been the smart move. Let them take her. Live to regret it in private, maybe drink himself into forgetting. Instead, he stepped between her and the rifles. Fire, he said, and you lose everything. Havel's eyes narrowed. Explain. I forced your archive sync through a hard multiplex channel, Andrew said. Any attempt to execute a full purge puts massive strain on your ghost architecture. You know this. Kill the 2 of us, and you've still got the data corruption spreading through your own systems like cancer. You'll spend the next decade trying to excise it without cutting out your access to half the galaxy's worst secrets. You're assuming we need those, Havel said. You built your power on them, Andrew said. On leverage, blackmail, insurance. You pull that out, and you're just another private army in a universe full of them. Havel's jaw flexed. Anna's voice dropped to a near whisper. He's right. We laced it deep. Your own fail-safes will fight you every time you try to remove it. Kill us. And the only people who might help you understand what we did are gone. Silence stretched in the corridor. Havel's men shifted, uneasy. They didn't like ambiguity. They liked clear orders, clear targets. This is extortion, Havel said eventually. No, Anna said. This is you being told no for the first time in your life. Andrew stepped closer, carefully. Let us walk. You keep your empire of secrets on life support. Maybe you learn something, or don't. Either way you live, so do we. And if I shoot you in the leg and drag you back to a black site? Havel asked mildly. Then all you get is my silence and her stubbornness, Andrew said, which you already know very well. He thought of all the years he'd spent analyzing men like Havel, men who built contingency plans within contingency plans, who needed control like oxygen. The only thing they feared more than exposure was chaos they couldn't model. Right now, Andrew and Anna were chaos. Havel studied him. For a heartbeat, Andrew thought he saw something almost like regret flicker in the man's eyes. You were my best analyst, Havel said. You could have had a different life. I still can, Andrew said. It just doesn't have you in it. Havel nodded once, as if some internal equation had balanced. Stand down, he said to his squad, the rifles lowered reluctantly. This isn't a pardon, Havel told them. You're ghosts. If you surface anywhere important, you will be hunted by better men than these. I look forward to disappointing them, Anna said. Havel's gaze flicked between them. There's a transport in Bay 9, old tug, unregistered. Take it and vanish. If you touch my systems again, there won't be a negotiation next time. He stepped aside. Andrew didn't trust it until they'd moved past, until the weight of half a dozen rifles had slipped off his spine. Thank you, he said. Havel didn't answer. His eyes were already on the console feed streaming from the data vault, lines of corrupted archive code cascading like a waterfall. They walked fast, not running, through the frigate's corridors, Anna close at his side. Only when they hit the bay airlock and the hatch slid shut behind them did Andrew let out the breath he'd been holding. You improvised that? Anna asked. Mostly, he said. You really buried it that deep? Deep enough, she said. He'll spend years playing damage control. Good, Andrew said. They crossed Dock 9. The tug Havel had mentioned sat hunched at the far end, a squat, ugly ship with mismatched hull plates and a paint job that had started life as yellow and lost the argument to rust. It was beautiful. Inside, the cockpit smelled like stale oil and old leather. Andrew slid into the pilot's chair. It creaked under his weight. You know how to fly this thing? Anna asked, dropping into the co-pilot's seat. Third tour, he said, flipping switches. I rode a tug into a debris field to pull out a crippled carrier. The pilot didn't make it. I learned fast. Of course you did, she murmured. The engines coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Systems flickered awake, one by one, complaining about neglect but still functional. He keyed the comm. Control, this is Tug 97 requesting manual undock. Central data flagged us for off-site transfer of high-priority scrap. It wasn't even a lie. Just not the whole truth. For a tense second, there was only static. Then a yawning, bored voice replied, 9-7, you're clear. Get out of my bay before delegation security decides to inspect every bolt you got. With pleasure, Andrew said. The clamps released. Gravity shifted as the tug lifted, nose tilting toward the bay's open maw. Beyond it, the black of space waited, stars smeared by the glow of the gas giant below. Anna watched him fly, eyes intent. So, she said over the engine rumble, where do you go when you've just set fire to one of the most dangerous black archives in the quadrant? Anywhere that's not on their first-page watch list, he said. Mining belts, free ports, the places the government pretends not to see unless someone's counting votes. You sound like you've thought about it, she said. Maybe I spent a lot of nights planning an escape plan I never used, he said. She smiled, small but real. You used it now. He glanced at her. You all right? She stared out at the salvage moon shrinking behind them. The ruined central hub was a jagged tooth on its surface, lit by the glow of cutting torches. Even damaged, it looked stubborn. I burned every bridge going in, she said quietly. Contacts, covers, friends. If I'd failed there, it would have just been another classified tragedy. Instead, Havel has to live with you out here, Andrew said. So does the rest of Dorian's shield. And you, she said softly. He met her gaze. The cockpit lights painted her face in bands of amber and blue, shadow and glow. For the first time since she'd crashed into his life, the lines of tension around her eyes had eased. Yeah, he said. Me too. You regret it? She asked. Ask me after I get some sleep in a bed that isn't bolted to a wall, he said. And after we find a place that serves real her lips curved. That's your new life goal? Real I'm a simple man, he said, who just did something profoundly stupid and possibly noble and hasn't decided which yet. I'll help you decide, she said. A heartbeat passed. You saved my life. You complicated mine, he replied. That's not an answer. He shrugged, watching the stars slide past. I didn't save you because of the data, or Havel, or revenge. I did it because when you walked into that hub and said my name, it was the first time in years I felt like I wasn't already scrap. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached across the narrow space and took his hand again, fingers interlacing with his, not in panic this time, but in something steadier. You're not Scrap, Andrew Bonfield, she said. You're the man who chose. Chose what? He asked, voice low. She squeezed his hand, to be himself again, even when it was dangerous. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of all the paths they hadn't taken and the one they just had. So, he said eventually, partner? Partners, she said, until we figure out who exactly we are, out here. Ex-military intel analyst and rogue operative on the run, he said. With a stolen tug, no plan, and half the sector's nastiest people mildly annoyed at us. Mildly, she echoed. We didn't destroy their archive, he said. We rewrote it. That's going to keep them way too busy to chase us properly. For a while. For a while, she agreed. The tug cleared the moon's gravity and slipped into open space. Ahead, the stars stretched, waiting. Set a course? Anna asked. Yeah, he said, hands moving over the controls. Away. She laughed softly. Away it is. He glanced at her one more time, memorizing the way she looked right now. Tired, bruised, alive, determined. Then he punched the drive. The salvage moon dropped away behind them, a shrinking scar on the face of the gas giant's sky. Ahead of them, 1,000 possible futures opened like fractured light. Identity was never a fixed thing, Andrew thought as the stars smeared into lines. It was choices, stacked and layered. Who you ran for, who you stayed for, who you reached for when the sirens screamed. He squeezed Anna's hand and didn't let go. For the first time in years, survival didn't feel like an accident. It felt like a decision.